We study all together, yeah?
Okay.
Very good. So then today, okay, then the slides. Yes. Thank you very much, Javila, for your help. Very good. So then today we will see the isolates. Yes. Okay. Wow. Headache on the way. So just to start with a quote given by Acharya Dharmakirti, the great logician, yeah. He said, "Kan cher ngögon rashingi rang rang ngo lani che tung shengi ngöda le dobalani tamba chen," because all things naturally abide in their own entity. They possess dependence on reversal from other things. So what does it mean? It means that you can find some explanations in knowing, naming, and negation. Yeah. So it means that a cup is necessarily not another cup. A table is necessarily not another table. We could say that any person is necessarily not another person. Yeah, so everything is the isolate of anything else. Yeah, everything is naturally isolated from anything else. Of course, when we read that, we could think that the entity of the cup could not be the entity of existence, but it's not the meaning of that. Yeah, because you all know that cup and existent are one entity. Yeah. Okay, so it means that, the definition of a phenomenon is that which holds its own entity. It means that we could say it's isolated from anything else. Yeah, even similar phenomena like a red cup and a blue cup, they are isolated naturally. Yeah, the one is necessarily not the other. Yeah, is that clear for everyone? Okay, very good. Okay, so we will see the isolates, identifying the isolates. Okay, so here the meaning of the isolate of functioning thing is very clear. The opposite of not being one with functioning thing. That's so clear. We could do the dedications now. Okay, so the opposite of not being one with functioning thing. So what does it mean? We will try to play with that, yeah? Just to have some debates, yeah? Okay, it follows that the subject one with pot is one with pot. What would you say?
Why?
Why? Okay, Zingrula is saying why.
Why?
Yes, yes, good. Everyone is telling
Why?
why. Yes, very good. So the challenger will address the opposite assertion, yeah? It follows that the subject one with pot is not one with pot.
Accept.
Yes, very good. Accept. Yes. The subject one with pot is not one with pot because?
Because only one is one with pot. Because only pot is one with pot.
Yes, because only pot is one with pot. Yeah, everybody agrees? Yes. All are experts in those points, yeah? Yes, we could say because it is different from pot. Yeah, the subject one with pot is different from pot, yeah? Yeah, that works as well, yeah? Yes, very good. Okay. So it follows that if it is different from pot, it's necessarily not one with pot. Yes.
Accept.
Yes, everybody accepts, yeah? Yes, easy. Yeah. Okay. It follows that the subject clay pot is the opposite of being one with pot. Hmm. Yes, it follows that the subject clay pot is the opposite of being one with pot. Everybody agrees, or you would say why?
I tend to say why, but I'm not sure why.
Okay. Daniel just wants to contradict me, yeah, today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in the contradictive mood today.
Okay, very good. So then if we say, yeah, that's interesting. Then if you say why, then the challenger would say it follows that the subject clay pot is not the opposite of being one with pot.
Mm.
Or another way to assert that would be it follows that the subject clay pot is one with pot.
No, because only pot is one with pot, so no.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So you would say why, yeah?
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, so it follows that the subject clay pot is not one with pot.
Accept.
Okay, so it follows that the subject clay pot is the opposite of being one with pot.
Accept.
Yes, very good. Okay.
Under that circumstance, yeah, we have to accept.
Yes, when we go step by step like this, it's a bit easier, yeah? Very good. Okay, yes, so we accept, yeah? Okay. It follows that you know the difference between the two, pot and the opposite of being one with pot, among contradictory, equivalent, 3P, and 4P. Yeah, we'll play with that, yeah? And the answer from Sheldon is this. No panic.
7.5 at least.
Yeah. Yeah, we tend to panic, yeah, when we have opposite of not being, opposite of being, and so on, yeah. But if we go slowly, then it should be not so complicated, yeah. Okay, so then I'll let you think a little bit. Then after we try to answer that, yeah. The comparison between pot and the opposite of being one with pot. You have 2 hours.
2.5.
I think they are contradictory.
Contradictory for Zingrula. Okay, so we have one kind of answer. Okay. Then who would find equivalent 3P, 4P?
Oh no, I found a common base. No. Yeah, I
Ah,
found a common base. Okay.
okay.
I
Very
corrected
good.
myself.
Very good.
Yeah.
3P
Yeah.
for me.
3P for Tsitawamola.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think 3P too, yeah.
3P as well for Daniel. Then we have 6P.
Yeah, six,
3 and 3.
6 3/4.
Okay, so yes, the first job is to check if we have a common base, yeah? Is it possible to find something which at the same time would be pot and the opposite of being one with pot? Yeah, something which is not one with pot and something which is pot.
The subject, a red pot.
Yeah, the subject, the red pot, for instance, yeah? I said, for instance, bulbous, flat-based, able to hold water. Does it work?
Yeah,
Yes, the subject, bulbous, flat-based, able to hold water. It follows that it is pot.
accept.
Yes, it is pot because,
Because that is the definition of pot.
yes, it follows that if it is the definition of pot, it's necessarily pot.
Accept.
Yes, everybody agrees?
Have to.
Okay. Yeah, if it is the definition of pot, it's necessarily pot, yeah. But the subject definition of pot itself is not pot, yeah.
Mm.
It is not because,
Definition is not the pot because the pot is a definiendum.
yeah, yes, we could say like this. Yes, or we could say because the subject definition of pot is permanent. Yeah, because
Mm.
definition is permanent. It's a conceptual abstraction, yeah? Okay.
Mm.
But whatever is that, yeah, the definition of pot, whatever is the definition of pot is necessarily bulbous, flat-based, able to hold water, yeah? So it's necessarily pot. Yeah, everybody agrees?
Mm.
Okay, very good. Okay. So, okay, and the subject bulbous, flat-based, able to hold water, it follows it is the opposite of being one with pot.
Except
Okay, it is the opposite of being one with pot because?
because it's different from pot.
Yes, it follows that if it is different from pot, is necessarily the opposite of being one with pot.
Except.
Okay, very good. Yes. Okay. Fantastic. Yeah, everybody agrees? Because the opposite of being means none. Yeah. So the opposite of me being one with pot means not one with pot. Yeah. Okay. So if it is different from pot, it's necessarily not one with pot. Yes. So, and it follows that if it is not one with pot, it's necessarily the opposite of being one with pot. Yes. Okay. Fantastic. Wow. Okay. So it works with the red pot as well. Yeah. Red pot, or we could say also clay pot. Yeah. It works as well. Yeah? Okay. Very good. So now what could be pot, but not the opposite of being one with pot?
Pot itself.
Pot itself. Okay. Everybody agrees? Yes,
Oh, no,
pot.
no,
Exactly. Even more precisely, pot. Because if we say pot itself, it follows it is one with pot.
no. Pot.
Yeah, pot. Okay. It's even more precise, exactly. Yeah. Okay. It follows that the subject pot is the subject pot. It follows it is pot.
Except.
Yes, the subject pot, it follows it is pot because it is pot. Because
Because it is the same subject.
yeah. Yes, exactly. So yes, yeah, if because it is the essential subject. Yeah, because it is, yes. So technically speaking, if I say as the objector, the challenger, yeah, if I say it follows that the subject pot is pot because it is the same subject or because it is not different from pot,
Mm.
it's a phenomenon which is not different from pot. Even in that case, we could say uh, there is something in a very precise meaning, something wrong in that syllogism, yeah, because there is no difference at all between two members of the syllogism. Yeah.
Right.
But yes, the Chaviji's answer is good, but my syllogism is not good. Yeah, okay, very good.
So
Yes.
we can one with pot
Yeah, we can say it follows that the subject pot is one with pot because, yeah,
because only pot is one with pot.
yes, exactly, yeah. Yes, we could say like this, yeah. Because only pot is one with pot, yeah. Or because only pot is not the opposite of being one with pot.
Mm.
It's just a way to play with those negations, yeah. Okay, very good. So now we just said, okay, it follows that the subject pot is not the opposite of being one with pot.
Except.
Yes, the subject pot is not the opposite of being one with pot because
Because it's not different from one with pot.
okay, it follows that the subject pot is not different from one with pot.
Oh no, it's different. How can I say this?
Why is that different?
Yes, so I would say that the subject pot is different from one with pot.
Yeah, except.
Mm.
Yeah, okay, very good. It is different because
And the diverse phenomena from one with pot.
Yes, exactly. The subject pot is different from one with pot. Is not different from pot, but is different from one with pot, yeah? Yeah? A bit tricky, yeah? Okay. Okay, so if we say, okay, the subject pot, it follows that it is not the opposite of being one with pot because it's not in the blue circle, yeah? Yeah, pot is not the opposite of being one with pot, yeah? So the answer could be because it's not in the blue circle?
Mhm.
So it's not the opposite of being one with pot because it is the opposite of not being one with pot. I will repeat. It follows, it follows that the subject pot is not the opposite of being one with pot because it is the opposite of not being one with pot.
I accept.
Okay, very good. Yes, exactly. Yes, it follows that if it is the opposite of not being one with pot, it's necessarily the opposite. Sorry, I will take time. It follows that if it is the opposite of not being one with pot, it's necessarily not the opposite of being one with pot.
Excellent.
Okay, so I will have slides after. Yeah, it will be written. It will be easier, yeah, when it's written. Okay, yeah, it's perfectly logical. Okay, so the subject pot is not the opposite of being one with pot. Yeah, very good. Okay, and then what could be the opposite of being one with pot and not pot?
Table.
Table. Yes, everybody agrees?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's,
Oh, I
up
said,
there, yeah.
yes, I put flower, but table works perfectly. Yeah, it followed that the subject table is the opposite of being one with pot.
Mhm.
Except
Yes, it is the opposite of being one with pot because?
it is different from pot.
Yes, it follows that if it is different from pot, it's necessarily the opposite of being one with pot.
Except
Fantastic. It follows that the subject table or flower or cup or anything is not pot.
except
Yes, it is not pot because?
because it is not bulbous, flat-based object to hold water.
Yes, it follows that if it is not bulbous, flat base, able to hold water, it's necessarily not pot.
Except
Wow, fantastic, fantastic. And could we find something which is none of them? Pot and the opposite of being one with pot. Yes, something which
can
is
you
not
repeat?
pot.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
So now we are checking if we can find something which is not pot and something which is not the opposite of being one with pot.
mm. No, it's the opposite of being one.
Yeah, it is not the opposite of being one with pot.
Is it rabbit's horn?
Ah, rabbit's horn. Rabbit's horn. It follows that the subject rabbit's horn it's not pot.
Except
Yes, and it follows that the subject rabbit's horn is not the opposite of being one with pot.
except
Okay, so it follows that the subject one with rabbit's horn is one with pot.
no, sorry.
Ah, it is not one with pot because?
Because it is different from pot.
Yes, it is different from pot. If it is different from pot, it's necessarily not one with pot.
No. Except.
So if it is different from pot, it's necessarily the opposite of being one with pot.
Except.
Yes. Okay. So if we are looking for something which is not pot and not the opposite of being one with pot, it has to be one with pot but not pot.
There's no such thing.
Yes, exactly. So we have 3P without anything which is neither, eh?
But rabbit's horn is not different from one with pot because it's
Mhm.
non-existent. Could it be?
Yes, exactly. The subject, rabbit's horn, is not different from pot. Yes. Okay. It's not different from pot. Okay. So, okay, so we could compare different from pot and the opposite of being one with pot. Yeah. If it is different from pot, is it necessarily the opposite of being one with pot?
No,
No?
it's different from pot.
I think yes.
Oh, yes, yes, in this
Yes.
way it works.
Yes,
Yes,
it is. If
exactly.
it is different, it's necessarily the opposite of being one with pot because it's necessarily not one with pot, yeah? Okay, but if it is the opposite of being one with pot, is it necessarily different from pot?
No, why?
Ah, it follows that if it is the opposite of not being, sorry, if it follows that if it is the opposite of being one with pot, it's not necessarily different from pot.
Except
Okay, so for instance,
rabbit's horn.
rabbit's horn, yeah. It follows that there is a perversion, yeah, between different from pot and the opposite of being one with pot.
In this direction. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there is a perversion. It follows that if it is different from pot, it's necessarily the opposite of being one with pot. But if it is the opposite of being one with pot, it's not necessarily different from pot. Yeah, for instance, horn of the rabbit. And what could be neither? Different from pot and the opposite of being one with pot?
Pot.
Yes, exactly. So in this case, different from pot and the opposite of being one with pot, we have 3P, yeah? Okay, very good. But here, in the case of pot and the opposite of not being one with pot, if we look for something which is none of them, so it cannot be pot because it's something which is not pot, and it cannot be the opposite of being one with pot. Yeah. So then it has to be one with pot and not pot. So we cannot find that, yeah? Okay, very good. So I made a mistake because I put something here when I recycled my slides. So don't pay attention. Okay, very good. So we have 3P without anything which is neither, yeah? Okay, fantastic. It follows that the subject pot is the opposite of being one with pot. You would say accept or why?
Why?
Right.
Why? Yes, exactly. Why? Yeah. So it follows that the subject pot is not the opposite of being one with pot. Everybody agrees? Yes. Good. Okay, accept. Yes. The subject pot is not the opposite of being one with pot because?
Because it is one with pot.
Yes. Exactly. Everybody agrees? The subject pot is one with pot, yeah? Okay. We could say because it is the opposite of not being one with pot. It is
Okay.
the opposite of not being one with pot. Yeah? Everybody agrees? I'm checking the eyebrows in case of... Yeah. Yeah, it is the opposite of not being one with pot. Yeah, so you have two negations here. So those two negations, you can discard them, then you have just one with pot, yeah?
Mhm.
Okay, it follows that if it is the opposite of not being one with pot, it is not the opposite of being one with pot. I let you read carefully.
Accept.
Yeah. Yeah. If we read carefully, it follows that if it is the opposite of not being one with pot, it is not the opposite of being one with pot. Yeah, we have to accept, yeah? Because in the whole universe, what is the opposite of not being one with pot?
Not being one with pot.
One with pot.
One with pot.
Okay, it follows that the subject one with pot is one with pot.
Accept.
Okay, it follows that pot is not one with pot.
Oh,
Because
Yeah.
one with pot is one with pot.
Only pot is one with pot.
Yes, just
Mhm.
pot.
yeah.
Okay, it follows that the subject pot is the opposite of not being one with pot.
Mhm.
Yes. And also in the whole universe, only pot is not the opposite of being one with pot.
Okay.
Yes. So each time when we formulate a blah blah blah, one with pot, blah blah blah, one with pot, we speak about pot. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. If it is the opposite of not being one with pot, it follows it is pot.
Accept.
Okay. And if it is not the opposite of being one with pot, it follows it is pot.
Accept.
Very good. So now we see how the thought consciousness is able to ascertain the very same phenomenon through different means. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So yes, it follows that if it is the opposite of not being one with pot, it is not the opposite of being one with pot. Yeah. We could say the way around as well. Yeah. If it is not the opposite of being one with pot, it's necessarily the opposite of not being one with pot. Yeah, we could say that both are equivalent. Yeah. Okay, because just the negation is put somewhere else. Yeah. Okay, very good. Okay, accept. Yeah, everybody accepts.
Mm.
Fantastic. Wow. Okay. Yes, you deserve your tea. Wow, fantastic. You're very sharp. Okay. So by those means, we can understand slowly what means the isolate of pot, yeah, and how the thought consciousness is ascertaining things, yeah, in different ways. Okay, then it will be maybe a little bit easier to understand logic after, yeah, when we dive into the thought consciousness and so on. Yeah, okay, good. So now, okay, now we have the coextensive phenomena with the isolate of functioning thing, for instance, yeah. So the isolate of functioning thing, the meaning of that would be the opposite of not being one with functioning thing. And the coextensive phenomena with the isolate of functioning thing, we have different ones, like for instance, one with functioning thing. That's the first one, yeah? Okay, then the second one is functioning thing, which is one with functioning thing. Okay. Then we can have also the definiendum of able to perform function. Yes, and we can have also the triply qualified imputed existent of able to perform function. Okay, so that's why we needed to enter into the definiendums and definitions in order to understand the coextensive phenomena with the isolate of functioning thing, yeah? Okay, wow, fantastic. So it follows that the coextensive phenomena with the isolate of functioning thing are only four. Who could say, yeah, accept, or why? It follows that the coextensive phenomena with the isolate of functioning thing are only four.
What does it mean, coextensive phenomena?
So we will see that just after. We will give the reasons why a phenomenon is coextensive with the isolated functioning thing. Yeah, usually speaking, in debate in Tibetan Buddhism, Daniel Perdue says that coextensive and equivalent are equivalent. Yeah, but in Tibetan we say coextensive would be yin kyap nyam, yin kyap nyam. Yeah, and equivalent it would be dön chik. So just different ways to express this more or less the same thing. But we could see some difference, yeah? Like for instance, okay, we will see some details after, yeah? But just like coextensive could mean equivalent, yeah? If it is one with functioning thing, it's necessarily the isolate of functioning thing. And if it is the isolate of functioning thing, it's necessarily one with functioning thing, yeah? We could say like this, yeah. So each of them is equivalent or coextensive with the isolate of functioning thing. Of course, if we say coextensive phenomenon with the isolate of functioning thing and the isolate of functioning thing, they are not coextensive, yeah? They are contradictory. So we will see step by step. Okay, so it follows that the subject, the four, one with functioning thing which is one with functioning thing, the definitum of able to perform function, the triply qualified imputed existence of able to perform function, are the four coextensive phenomena with the isolate of functioning thing.
Except.
Okay, yeah, it is because it is written here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because it's
So
written in front of us.
it follows that there are only four coextensive phenomena with the isolate of functioning thing.
Why?
Ah, why? Okay, Chavila. Because
How about not different from functioning thing?
not different from functioning thing. So it follows that the subject not different from functioning thing is a coextensive phenomenon with the isolate of functioning thing.
Maybe not, but the opposite. How do we different from, yeah, the opposite of being different from functioning thing.
Okay, the opposite of being different from functioning thing. It follows it is a coextensive phenomenon with the isolate of functioning thing.
Accept.
Okay, so it follows that if it is the opposite of being different from functioning thing, it's necessarily the isolate of functioning thing.
Yes, accept.
Okay, so it follows that the subject horn of the rabbit is coextensive with the isolate of functioning thing because it is the opposite of being different from functioning thing.
But horn of the rabbit doesn't exist.
Exactly, I accept. So it follows that if it is, it follows that the subject horn of the rabbit cannot be a phenomenon which is coextensive with the isolate of functioning thing.
Accept.
Yeah. Yes. Still, horn of the rabbit is the opposite of being different from the from what? From functioning thing. Still, the subject horn of the rabbit is the opposite of being different from functioning thing. Yeah.
It is okay.
Yeah. Very good.
Similar to not.
Sorry, Chariji.
It is the same as not.
Yes, the opposite of not being is the same, or more or less, as not. Exactly, not different. Yeah, the opposite of being different from functioning thing and not different from functioning thing. Yeah,
Okay.
they would mean the same. Yeah. So, but still, if we say, okay, the subject functioning thing, which is not different from functioning thing,
Hmm.
that would work, no?
which is not different from functioning thing.
Yeah, functioning thing, which is not different from functioning thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it works.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also
Okay.
maybe like Chavila said, the opposite of, what was it? Being different
Functioning thing, yeah.
from functioning thing and existent.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Mm.
Yes, a phenomenon which is the opposite of being different from
Mm.
functioning thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would
Mm.
work exactly. So we have at least five, six, maybe six coextensive phenomena. Then we
Mm.
can find more. Yeah.
Also, impermanent phenomena is a coextensive phenomena with the isolator functioning thing.
Okay, impermanent phenomenon. Okay, impermanent. So it follows that the subject impermanent is a coextensive phenomenon with the isolator functioning thing.
Except,
Okay, so did you all learn the three reasons why a phenomenon which is like, for instance, one with functioning thing is coextensive with the isolator functioning thing? So if we will see that in the rest of the slides, yeah. So we keep in mind Tsitan Wamola's answer, yeah. Then we will try to figure out, yeah. Okay. Very good, with some debate, yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I guess you don't know the definition of functioning thing.
The reason is not established.
Yes. Tamadrup in Tibetan, yeah. The reason is not established, yeah. Exactly. It follows that you know the definition of functioning thing.
Except
Accept. Okay. Pause it.
that able to perform a function.
Yes, the subject able to perform function. Everybody agrees? Yes, we know it by heart. Yeah, because we repeat so much. So now we will never forget it even during our next life. During our next life, when people will ask us, do you know the definition of functioning thing? Even as babies, we will be able to answer that.
That would be awesome.
Yes. Okay, so I cannot read my slide now. It follows that.
The subject,
Mm,
the referendum
okay.
available
Ah,
from the
yes.
function.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I could not read
It's
the
like
top of the. It follows that the subject, the definitum of able to perform function is the isolator functioning thing.
Accept.
accept.
Okay, we have two accept. We have a club, we have a president and a secretary in the club, in the association, accept. Okay.
I'm not sure it's founded
Yeah.
yet, but
Yes. Okay. So let's try to figure out. Okay. So I just need to check the eyebrows. Okay. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
What?
what?
Okay. What? It follows that the subject definiendum of able to perform function is the isolator functioning thing. Okay, so do you remember? So maybe I didn't say that. I should have said that. In the whole universe, each phenomenon is its own isolate. Each phenomenon is its own isolate. Yeah, it
Yeah,
follows that the subject cup is the isolate of cup. The subject book is the isolate of book. Yeah, the subject person is the isolate of person. Yeah, okay. So now that we know that, it follows that the subject definiendum of able to perform function is the isolate of functioning thing.
Accept.
Okay, so it follows that the subject functioning thing is not the isolate of functioning thing.
Why?
Because the definiendum of able to perform function is the isolate of functioning thing.
Accept.
Okay, so So then if I say, okay, it follows that the subject functioning thing is not the isolate of functioning thing because the definitum of able to perform function is the isolate of functioning thing, then the answer would be no perversion, yeah? Okay. Okay, so it follows that two phenomena can be one isolate.
Two phenomena?
Because on one hand, we have functioning thing, which is the isolate of functioning thing. And on the other hand, we have the definitum of able to perform function, which is the isolate of functioning thing. Ah, so functioning
As you
thing.
explained it, we have to accept.
Ah, we have to accept. Okay. Okay. So do you remember the meaning of the isolate of functioning thing? It is the opposite of not being one with functioning thing.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to be the isolate of functioning thing, it has to be one with functioning thing, yeah? So it follows that the subject definitum of able to perform function is one with functioning thing. Ah, it is not different from functioning
Yeah.
thing.
Mm-hmm. So it can't be the isolate.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. So you all know that functioning thing has two words. Yeah. And definitum of able to perform a function. Yeah, 7 words. On one side, we have 2 words, and on the other side, we have 7 words. Ah, so they are not different. 2 words on one side and 7 words on the other side, they are not different.
Seems
Except
different.
they're not different.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
H2O and water, they are
Yeah,
not different.
they are not different. Okay, so
Yeah,
it follows that
just like
they are
H2O.
one. Yes,
They
so
are
they are
one.
not different in name. They are not different in name. H2O and water.
I know.
It's exactly the same name.
It's not the
Ah.
same name, but it's the same.
Ah, it's not the same name. Yeah. So, but still, it's the same meaning, yeah?
Yeah. So they're
H2O
all
and
the
water.
same.
Yeah, it's the same meaning. So when we say the same meaning in Tibetan, dönchik, it means equivalent. Yeah. So they are equivalent, H2O and water. But in order to be equivalent, they have to be different. Yeah. What is the definition of equivalent? Who has the definition
They
of
are
equivalent?
different and they share the 8 doors of pervasion.
Yes, they are different and they share the 8 doors of pervasion. Yeah. So yes, H2O and water are different and share the 8 doors of pervasion. Yeah. Okay, we could say wet and moistening. Yeah, that's the definition of water. Yeah? Wet and moistening is different from water, and water is different from wet and moistening. Still, they are equivalent. Yeah. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay. Okay. Yes, that's a very tricky point. So it follows that the subject H2O is the isolate of H2O.
Accept.
Yes, and it follows that water is the isolate of water.
Accept.
Okay. And there is only water which is one with water.
Accept.
Yes, so even wet and moistening is different from water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So joyfully. Yeah. It follows that the subject H2O is different from water.
Accept.
So it follows that the subject H2O is not one with water.
Accept. Is it
So it
because
is not,
it's
yeah.
different to the thought consciousness?
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So if it is different from the for the third consciousness, it cannot be the isolate of water. Only water is the isolate of water, and only H2O is the isolate of H2O. Yeah? So it follows that the subject H2O is not the isolate of water. Yes. Okay, very good. So now if we have, it follows that the subject definiendum of able to perform function, we are not telling whatever is the definiendum of able to perform function. Yeah. We are precisely saying the definiendum of able to perform function. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. The definiendum of able to perform function, it follows it is not a functioning thing.
Except.
Okay, it is not a functioning thing because
No, did you say the isolated functioning thing or
no,
function?
just a functioning thing.
Or can you repeat? I have to-
Yeah, it follows that the subject, the definiendum of able to perform a function, it follows it is not a functioning thing.
Or except, yeah,
It is not a functioning thing because
because definiendum is permanent.
yes. So if definiendum is permanent, the definiendum of able to perform function is permanent as well. Yeah?
Except.
Yes, very good. So it follows that only functioning thing is the isolate of functioning thing.
Except.
So it follows that if the definiendum of able to perform function is not functioning thing, it cannot be the isolate of functioning thing.
Except.
Yes, exactly. Very good. But still it is coextensive with the isolate of functioning thing.
Okay.
Yes? Yes. Okay. Wow. Headache. Okay. So here it follows that the subject definiendum of able to perform function is the isolate of functioning thing. You would say why, yeah? Yeah. Like
Mhm.
Kevin is is telling what? Okay. So it follows that the subject definiendum of able to perform function. So here the challenger is testing your self-confidence. It
Mhm.
follows that the subject, the definiendum of able to perform function is the isolate of functioning thing because it is one with functioning thing.
Mhm.
Reason not established.
Yes, exactly. Fantastic. The reason is not established. Yeah, the subject definiendum of able to perform function is not one with functioning thing. Yeah, because only functioning thing is one with functioning thing.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So next time we will try to provide paracetamol. Yeah, for the
Yes.
headache.
Are the paracetamol a functioning thing?
Yeah.
I think we need them.
Yes. So it follows that the subject definiendum of able to perform function is different from functioning thing. Yes. So if it is different from functioning thing, it cannot be one with functioning thing. Yes, that's why here the good answer is yes, the reason is not established. Yeah. Very good. Fantastic. It follows that the subject, the definiendum of able to perform function is not one with functioning thing.
Accept.
Yes, exactly. Accept. Okay. The subject, the definiendum of able to perform function is not one with functioning thing because?
Only functioning thing is one with functioning thing.
Yes, only functioning thing is one with functioning thing. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Because only functioning thing is one with functioning thing. We could say as well. Okay. We could say because it is different from functioning thing. Yeah. That works as well. Yeah. Okay. It follows that the subject, the definiendum of able to perform function is not the isolate of functioning thing.
Accept.
Yeah. Yes. Accept. Yeah. Who would say that? Why? Who would dare?
Who's there? Mhm. I'm feeling up for the job, but I'm not sure about it.
Yeah, yeah, because as you know, each phenomenon in the universe is its own isolate, yeah.
Mhm.
So only functioning thing is the isolate of functioning thing, yeah. Yes. So everything else cannot be the isolate of functioning thing.
Right.
Yeah. Anything else could be a functioning thing without being the isolate of functioning thing. Yeah. Okay. So we will see that later. Okay. So it follows that the subject, the definitum of able to perform function is not the isolate of functioning thing, except yeah, the definitum of able to perform function is the isolate of what?
Definiendum of able to perform a function.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly that. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. Accept. Okay. The subject, the definitum is the definitum of able to perform function is not the isolate of functioning thing because
Because it is the isolate of the definiendum of able to perform a function.
yes, exactly. Yes, because it is not, yeah, it works as well, yeah. We could say we could give different answers, yeah. So because it is the isolate of the definitum of able to perform function, or we could say as well because it is not the opposite of not being one with functioning thing.
So one and isolate is the same?
Yeah, in one sense, yes. Yes, if it is one, yeah, like when we see when we see the coextensive phenomena with the isolate of functioning thing, we have one with functioning thing, yeah. Yeah. So it follows that if it is one with functioning thing, it is the isolate of functioning thing, exactly. Yeah, the meaning, the both meanings are coextensive, yeah. One with functioning thing, the opposite of not being one with functioning thing, the isolate of functioning thing, and so on, yeah.
Why do they give the double negation in the definition?
Yeah, because for Acharya Dharmakirti, when he is debating with the Nayayika and the Vaisheshikas and so on, they tend to say that anything that you can think about would be real existent. Yeah, so Acharya Dharmakirti would say, but when we think about something, the appearing object to the thought consciousness is a negation. Yeah, so it's not any kind of negation, but it's a permanent negation. Yeah, so it follows that if it is the appearing object to thought consciousness, it's a merely imputed phenomenon. It's less existent than a real thing, than a cup, a table, and so on. So Acharya Dharmakirti is telling us that when we have the thought consciousness, the concept or the meaning generality of cup appears as being the opposite of not being cup. So it's a way to assert cup. Yeah, when we say the opposite of not being cup, it means cup. But still the thought consciousness is functioning in a negative way. They would say anyapoha in Sanskrit. Yeah, the exclusion of everything else. So in that way, Acharya Dharmakirti says, okay, when you think about, okay, that cup that is red, that cup that is impermanent, that cup which is mine, that cup which is not yours, and so on. So we have not three cups. Only one cup is real. Then the others are just, the different ways to speak about that cup. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's clear enough.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're negating all other cups to describe that cup.
Yes, those cups, those ways to describe that cup, they are in one sense, they are, they refer to that cup, but those ways to think, like when I think that cup, which is mine, my thought consciousness has as its appearing object a meaning generality of that cup, which is mine. Yeah. So that cup, which is mine, which is the appearing object to thought consciousness, is an under-existent, is a permanent phenomenon. It exists, but it is not a real thing. Yeah, the only real thing is just that cup.
But if he
And
says we think the opposite of not being cup, then he could
yeah,
also say we think the isolate cup.
yeah, but the opposite of not being cup is not the isolate of cup. Yeah, because the opposite of not being cup is different from the opposite of not being one with cup. We have 3P. Yeah, the opposite of being cup and the opposite of not being one with cup. Maybe we can debate that on Monday.
Think about it.
Okay, but
Mhm.
yes.
Cool.
So
I'll try and be
if
back on
you
Monday, by the way. I was off
so
for a few weeks, but I was off for a few weeks today. I had other things, but I'll try and be back on Monday.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very good.
Mm.
Yeah, so so we could say that if you want to know more about that, then you can read Knowledge and Liberation. Yeah, at some point we learn what means chancel, the exclusion of other, and we have different kinds of exclusions. We have an exclusion which is a specifically characterized phenomenon, like for instance, this non-cup. This non-cup is a specifically characterized phenomenon. Yeah, still it is an exclusion because we negate everything that is not that cup. Yeah. So we can say it is a Ranseng Shensel. Yeah, it is a specifically characterized phenomenon which is not a non-cup. Yeah, and in order to apprehend that, we have the the non-cup, which is the appearing object to thought consciousness. Yeah. So the non-cup, which is the appearing object to thought consciousness, is permanent, and this non-cup is impermanent.
Does this have to do with the mind being an eliminative engager, and ordinary mind is always an eliminative engager? Like right now also we are doing this, like by negating everything we are seeing through by negation.
Yes, exactly, because the thought consciousness is an eliminative engager. Yeah, the thought consciousness. Yeah, when we think about cup, we eliminate everything that it is not cup. Yeah, and when we think about a red cup, we eliminate everything that is not a red cup. So it's very specific each time. Yeah, it's we exclude everything that is not that phenomenon. Yeah, so yes, so that's why we have the other exclusion or the elimination, which is the appearing object to thought consciousness, and we have the phenomena which are impermanent, for instance. So a way to express that is that Anne Klein would say that in Knowledge and Liberation, is that when the first time when someone says, okay, oh look, this is a tree, yeah, or look, this is a cat, yeah, the real object of expression would not be tree or cat, but not tree, not cat in our mind. And after, when we recognize another tree as being a tree, it could be very different. Yeah, it could be another tree, or when we recognize another cat as being a cat, it could be very different. Still, that cat outside is always the exclusion of not being a cat. So the double exclusion is very handy, very useful, because Anne Klein would say, and the Buddhist epistemologists would say, if we need to know things in a positive way, we would need to know all the phenomena which are included in one category. Yeah, we would have to know red cup, clay cup, clay cup, which is made in China, not in China, in India. It's better. Uh, made in Europe, made in Switzerland, and so on. So we would need to know exactly, all the instances of cups. So that would be very difficult. So the Buddhist epistemologists say the real object of expression when we learn what is a cup is the generality, the opposite of not being cup. So the meaning, the meaning generality appears like this. And each cup is the opposite of not being a cup. So it matches perfectly. So we can discard some secondary, characteristics like green, red, tall, small, and so on, yeah?
I have to think about it. Yeah. I think in
Yeah.
neuroscience, they would say you have a kind of prototype,
Yes.
but would be positive, they don't, yeah, maybe.
So we have something
You
positive
have
in
like
the
a
mind.
prototype of a tree because you cannot know all trees, and then
Exactly.
you would learn which kind of plants belong to the prototype tree category
Mm.
and which do not.
Yes, exactly.
Like
So we
maybe
could
the
say
first time
that's
you see a palm tree, you would think, oh, it's not a tree or whatever, yeah. Or there's kind of dogs who looks a little bit like pigs. Yeah, first
Yes,
time you see it, you might think it's not a dog. Then somebody tells you, oh, it's still a dog. And then
yes,
you put it to the dog category.
exactly. Like when my dog was still alive, yeah, sometimes we could confuse him with a pig. Like snoring like a pig. It was a mops, Yeah, so kind,
If
so
small
nice.
children, they would say they wouldn't recognize it as a dog unless somebody is
Yes.
told them. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why, in recognizing, not recognizing reality, in knowledge and liberation, Anne Klein is explaining like the difference between zebra and horse, for instance. Yeah, like some children, they don't, they confuse both. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it happens sometimes. And she also speaks about one story when Lama Atisha came to Tibet, he tried to learn Tibetan, of course, yeah, some words like this. And so at some point, maybe he asked to his translators, "Oh, what is that?" So at some point, he wanted to know the meaning of stone. Yeah. So then, at some point on the way, he said, "Okay, now we have to stop because I have a rock in my in my shoe." Oh, so
Oh, yeah.
because
I remember that one.
because when he asks, what is that? Then maybe the Tibetan people say, chak means a rock, or like a rocky cliff or something like this. Yeah, chak.
Mhm.
Okay. So maybe at this time, in Lama Atisha's mind, he didn't discard the dimension.
Mhm.
The the how do you say? If we
Yeah, the
speak
size.
about a small,
Size, yeah.
exactly, a small rock would be a stone. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he wanted to say, I have a stone in my shoe, but he said, I have a rock in my shoe. Yeah, it is still stone, but a rock is much bigger than a stone. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, we could say a pebble. Yeah, a pebble. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's why in that case, we don't exclude enough. We don't exclude the dimension. Or maybe in the mind of children, they don't exclude, the how do you say, the color black and white for zebra. Yeah, in a horse. Yeah, they don't exclude that. So yeah, I will give you the reference of the pages of Knowledge and Liberation where Anne Klein is speaking about that. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. My pleasure. So okay. So what was the point here? Okay. Ah, yes, okay. It was the subject, the definite term available to perform a function is not the isolate of functioning thing because it is different from functioning thing. It is not one with functioning thing, or because it is not the opposite of not being one with functioning thing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that works. Yeah. So if you exclude the both negations, the two negations, you have an affirmation. Yeah. So because it is the opposite of being one with functioning thing, yeah? Okay, because it is the opposite of being one with functioning thing. The meaning is the same as because it is not the opposite of not being one with functioning thing.
Mhm.
If you discard the two negations, you have the opposite of being one with functioning thing. Yeah, the definiendum of able to perform function is not one with functioning thing, so it is the opposite of being one with functioning thing, because it is not the opposite of not being one with functioning thing. Okay, very good. Because we could give that answer, because the subject, the definiendum of able to perform function, is a coextensive phenomenon with the isolate of functioning thing. Yeah. Okay. So if it is a coextensive phenomenon with the isolate of functioning thing, it's necessarily not the isolate of functioning thing. Okay. So now we will see that. Okay. The subject, the definiendum of able to perform function, is a coextensive phenomenon with the isolate of functioning thing, because then now we have the three reasons given in the text. Because the definiendum of able to perform a function is different from the isolate of functioning thing. That's the first reason. Second reason, if it is the definiendum of able to perform a function, it is necessarily the isolate of functioning thing. And the third one, very easy. If it is the isolate of functioning thing, it is necessarily the definiendum of able to perform function. Yeah, those three reasons. Yeah. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Yeah. It follows that the subject definiendum of able to perform function is different from the isolate of functioning thing.
Accept.
Okay, it is different from the isolate of functioning thing because
only the isolated function thing is one with isolated function thing.
okay, so it follows that the subject, the isolate of functioning thing, is the isolate of functioning thing.
No, functioning thing is isolated.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it follows that the subject, the isolate of functioning thing, is the isolate of the isolate of functioning thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, very good. Yes, so the definiendum of able to perform function is different from the isolate of functioning thing. We agree with that. If it is the definiendum of able to perform function, what is in the whole universe the definiendum of able to perform function?
Functioning thing.
Yes. If it is the definiendum of able to perform function, it is the functioning thing. Yeah. And what is in the whole universe the isolate of functioning thing?
Functioning thing.
Yes, exactly. So if it is the definiendum of able to perform function, which is functioning thing, then it is necessarily the isolate of functioning thing, which is functioning thing. Yeah, so two different ways to express exactly the same thing. Yeah. And the last reason, if it is the isolate of functioning thing, which is functioning thing, it is necessarily the definiendum of able to perform function, because it is functioning thing. Yeah?
Yeah.
Does it work? Okay, so now let's try to check, is impermanent? I didn't forget cet moment-là. It follows that the subject impermanent is a phenomenon which is coextensive with the isolate of functioning thing. So if we say yes, for instance, so the first answer would be easy. Yeah? It follows that the subject impermanent is different from the isolate of functioning thing. Yeah.
Accept.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Very good. And the last one also is easy. If it is the isolate of functioning thing, it's necessarily impermanent. Because what is the isolate of functioning thing?
Functioning thing.
Yes. And if it is functioning thing, it's necessarily impermanent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but the second one now, if it is impermanent, is it necessarily the isolate of functioning thing?
No.
No,
No.
because,
Example table.
for instance, a table, yeah? Yeah, a table is not the isolate of functioning thing. Still, it is impermanent, yeah?
Oh.
Okay.
So the second reason would not work, yeah? Yeah? Is that clear for everyone? Okay, so we could say, okay, it follows that the subject impermanent is different from the isolate of functioning thing. That's okay. if it is the isolated functioning thing, it is necessarily impermanent because it is functioning thing. But if it is impermanent, it's not necessarily the isolated functioning thing, yeah? Okay, very good. Wow. You are all very, very sharp. So, okay, I don't know if we still have time. Let's check. Yeah, maybe, okay, maybe 5 minutes, something like this, yeah?
Good for me.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So, okay. So it follows that you can recap the meaning of the isolate of pot.
The opposite of being one with thought.
Yes. Opposite of not being one with pot, yeah?
Being with thoughts. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So it follows that now we can debate that maybe. Yeah, okay, because I'm not sure I will be here on Monday. So very selfishly, I will try to debate that with you. Okay, so it follows that you know the difference between the two, the opposite of not being pot and the opposite of not being one with pot. Among contradictory, equivalent, 3p, 4p, the opposite of not being pot and the opposite of not being one with pot.
Yeah, 3p.
3p for singular. Ah,
Go to, yeah.
yeah, 3p. Okay, for Daniel as well.
Mm.
Some people are just wondering, oh, what am I doing here? So it follows that you can
Trying to collect the parking imprints.
yes, imprints for next life.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So it follows that you can have some common base between the opposite of not being pot and the opposite of not being one with pot.
The
Pot.
subject.
Pot. It follows that the subject pot is the opposite of not being pot.
Mhm.
Except
Okay, it is the opposite of not being pot because
because opposite of not being pot is pot.
yeah, we can say because if it is the opposite, yeah, the
Okay.
opposite of not if it is the opposite of not being pot, it's necessarily pot.
Pot.
Yeah, because the subject opposite of not being pot is not pot, it's permanent, yeah. But if it
Okay.
is, yes, if it is the opposite of not being pot, it's necessarily pot.
Okay.
Except
Yes. For instance, it follows that the subject blue pot is the opposite of not being pot. Yeah, it follows that the subject,
Except.
yes, blue pot is the opposite of not being pot, yeah?
Mhm.
Yeah, it is the opposite of not being pot because it is pot.
mm,
Yes, okay, very good. And the subject pot, it follows it is the opposite of not being one with pot.
Except.
Yes, it is the opposite of not being one with pot because
Because it's not the opposite of being one with pot.
okay, it follows that if it is not the opposite of being one with pot, it's necessarily the opposite of not being one with pot.
Except.
Very good. Very good. Okay. And okay. Okay, so it follows that pot is both So now you can posit the perversion, yeah?
If it is the opposite of not being one with pot, it's necessarily the opposite of not being pot, and
Okay.
not the other way around.
But if it is the opposite of not being pot, it's not necessarily the opposite of not being one with pot.
Yeah, except.
Yes. Okay. Okay, for instance, what could be the opposite
Blue
of not
pot.
being yes, blue pot. It follows that the subject blue pot is the opposite of not being pot.
Except.
It is the opposite of not being pot because
Because it's a pot.
yes, it follows that if it is pot, it's necessarily the opposite of not being pot.
Except.
Because it's not the opposite of being pot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It follows that if it is not the opposite of being pot, it's necessarily the opposite of not being pot.
Except.
Okay. Very good. Yes. You don't have the hardest job, yeah, as a defender. Just why accept. Okay. So it follows that if it is the opposite of not being one with pot, it's necessarily the opposite of pot. Of being the opposite of not being pot.
Except.
Yeah, so it follows that the subject blue pot is not the opposite of not being one with pot.
Except.
Okay, it is not the opposite of not being one with pot because
Because only pot is the opposite of not being one with pot.
okay, only pot is the opposite of not being one with pot. Okay, so it follows that the subject blue pot is the opposite of being one with pot.
Oh, no, no, no.
No?
Blue pot. What again?
Yeah. It follows that the subject blue pot is the opposite of being one with pot.
Except. No, 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 no. Not, it's not.
Is the opposite.
Okay, my argument was my reason was good enough. Okay, because it's not the opposite of being one with pot.
Okay, it's not the opposite of being one with pot.
Because blue pot is not the opposite of being, oh God, one with pot.
Okay. It's not the opposite of being one with pot, so it follows it is one with pot.
No, it's not.
So if it is the opposite of
Not, I forgot one note. Okay,
no problem. Yes.
Both were.
Sometimes, I guess maybe Daniel Perdue is telling that, yeah, in the debate in Tibetan Buddhism, he says that the chapter on the opposite, sometimes they call that the shame of the geishas, because the geishas are so clever, but sometimes they just miss one note or not, and then sometimes they can be confused as well, yeah. So if it is the shame of the geishas, we have no issue of feeling guilty. Okay, so it follows that the subject blue pot is the opposite of being one with pot.
Accept.
Yes, it is the opposite of being one with pot because
Because only pot is one with pot.
yes, because only pot is not the opposite of not being one with pot.
Yes.
Only pot is not the opposite of being one with pot, yeah, because pot is the opposite of not being one with pot.
It's the opposite of not being one with pot. Yes.
Okay. Yes, okay. So it follows that you can posit something which is neither, yeah, the opposite of not being pot and the opposite of not being one with pot.
Table.
Table, yeah, it follows that the subject table is not the opposite of not being pot.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes, it is not the opposite of not being pot because
Because it is not flat bulbous object able to hold water.
yes, exactly. It follows that if it is not bulbous, flat base, able to hold water, it's necessarily not the opposite of not being pot.
Except.
Okay, because it is the opposite of not being pot.
Except.
Yeah, it is the opposite of not, it is the opposite. Yeah, it is the opposite of being pot, sorry. Yeah, if it is not flat base, bulbous, able to hold water, it's necessarily the opposite of not being pot.
Except.
Yes, very good. So it is not the opposite of being non-pot. Okay, sorry. Yes. Okay, on the subject table, it follows that it is not the opposite of not being one with pot.
Except.
Yes, it is not the opposite of not being one with pot because?
Because it is different from pot.
Yes, it follows that if it is different from pot, it's necessarily not the opposite of not being one with pot.
Except.
Very good. So 3P between what and what?
Opposite of not being pot and opposite of not being one with pot.
Yes, fantastic. Wow, you did very, very, very well. I'm very proud of you. Yeah. Fantastic. So yes, I will share the reference in the book, yeah, Knowledge and Liberation, because it's very useful. And then you can check by yourself if you have the pages. Otherwise, then we can discuss that later because we will enter into Lorik maybe one next time. I don't know if you want to do more about the isolates or if you want to go directly next time in Lorik, yeah, in Buddhist psychology, then as you wish, yeah, then we can do half maybe next time, yeah. Okay. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, and for the sake of all the beings, as usually, yeah, for the long life and good health of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and for the awakening of all the sentient beings as quick as possible. Yeah. Thank you so much. Take care and see you soon.
Just a question, will be continuing during the summer? Because I saw that Tushita is closing for June, July.
Yes, we have holidays, yeah, during the summertime, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, yeah. So will that be a
Then
next session or is there already?
next session would be, I don't know when exactly we stop, in June or I don't know. I
I
don't
saw
know
think-
exactly.
Tushita is closing in June, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what I wanted to ask you. Did you wanted to continue, Christophe?
Oh yes, my pleasure. Yeah, if it's useful, yeah. But it depends on you, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, maybe I can check with Nicola and we can figure out.
Okay. Okay, very good.
Okay.
Okay, we will check.
Thank you.
Otherwise, then you can just recap, try to debate with yourself, your friends and so on during the break, yeah? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Yeah, we
And
can
see you
keep
Thank
up
soon.
you
on
for
Monday.
joining.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye-bye, everybody.